We're going to begin tonight's session with paying homage to the Triple Gem. So you're welcome to join in with me when we do that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhaṃ Bhagavantaṃ Abhivademi. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammam Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅkhaṃ Namāmi.
Paul, you may begin the meditation.
What was that? I missed that.
You may begin the guided meditation.
Has the invitation been given?
So the meditation first before the invitation?
Oh, okay, yes, sorry, I forgot. So we're beginning tonight's session with 10 minutes of meditation. So for those of you listening, if you would like to sit comfortably, either on the floor or on a chair, close your eyes, try to sit up straight, and bring your attention to the feeling of the in-breath and the out-breath at the tip of your nose. If you can't find that feeling, just breathe in more deeply than usual so that you can feel the air rushing into your body. And then the feeling of the air rushing out at the tip of the nose. And if it helps, you can count as you sit. So breathe in, you count 1. Breathe out, you count 1. Breathe in, you count 2. Breathe out, you count 2. And you can count silently to yourself up to 10 in-breaths and out-breaths. And then go back to counting with 1 again. Once you've found the sensation of the breath at the tip of your nostrils, just relax. Allow the breath to go in and out at its normal pace. You don't have to force it to be long or short. Just try to relax body and mind and center all your attention on the in and out breath. And you may count if you find that helpful, or else just follow that sensation of the breath touching the nostrils as it comes in, the breath touching your nostrils as it goes out. And you'll be aware of your mind, the restlessness of the mind as you do this. You'll probably find that after a couple of moments, your mind starts to drift away. And that's the challenge of this practice, is to pay attention, wake up to the truth of what's going on in your mind and your body at this time. And if you notice your mind straying away, no longer paying attention to the breath, bring it back. And that quality that brings the breath back to brings your mind back to the breath is sati, mindfulness, and its companion, sampajanya, clear comprehension. So breathing in, you're mindful. Breathing out, you're mindful of that feeling of the breath. And you're clearly comprehending the sensation of the breath, knowing whether the breath is coming in or the breath is going out. Clearly comprehending whether the breath is short or the breath is long. And your aim is to keep bringing attention back to the feeling of the in-breath and the out-breath. And keep guard, or keep watching over your mind as it runs away, following the next thought. And you have to be very patient with your mind, just as if you are looking after a young child who's learnt to walk and now wants to walk all over the place and can't sit still. Your mind is the same. At first, it won't want to stay with the breath. It wants to think, following every impression, every sensation, every thought that comes up. It will want to follow it and forget the breath. So your aim is to make the breath the center of your attention, and to guard over your mind so that it doesn't run away too far. It's natural that it will run away, but when you realize it's no longer with the breath, then bring it back as soon as you can. If you've been counting, then restart the counting at 1. If you're not counting, just go straight to the feeling of the breath at the tip of the nostrils. Sometimes it also helps just to take one long, deep breath, just to re-establish your attention on the feeling of the breath at the tip of the nostrils. So just in the same way as a mother or a father might take one long, deep breath when they've brought their restless child back, the kid having run away. In the same way, when your mind runs away on a train of thought, once you've realized it, take this long, deep breath just to re-establish attention on the breath, so you know where your mind is. Just as the parent wants to know where its child is for safety, and so the parent can look after the child properly. Your aim is to look after your mind by keeping it where you know it, where you see it. And the only way to see your own mind is to give it an object to put its attention on. And for today's meditation, that is the breath. You're learning to pay attention to your own breath from moment to moment to moment. And at this time, you don't have to solve all your problems, your work problems, your family problems, your health problems, your money problems, the world's problems, your friends' problems. This is not the time to be thinking and worrying and solving all these problems. This is the time to let go. Put all the problems down where you can't see them, somewhere far away. And just bring your attention back to the breath over and over again. And if you keep doing this, you'll start to enjoy it because your body and mind will relax with the breathing. If you keep coming back to the breath, you'll find both physically and mentally you do start to rest and relax. All that running after every thought, every memory was quite tiring. Now you can just stay put in one place. And if you learn to do this often, regularly, it will bring you a lot of energy, bright, clear energy. All that energy that is now saved because you're not running after all the other thoughts and mental impressions. That energy is now conserved in the one place with the breath, with your mind together. And you can feel absolutely safe, peaceful, at ease, because you know exactly where your mind is. Just like looking after the child. When you know where your child is, you can be at peace, at ease. You feel very easy in yourself. The more your mind stays with the breath, the more easy you feel. But don't get angry or annoyed if it runs away again, following trains of thought, because it's been doing that for many years. It likes to follow these trains of thought, ideas, memories, but they have never brought you true peace like when you follow the breath. They just wear you out. Now you can bring all your energy and attention to the breath and wake your mind up with the breath. The energy of the breath can keep your body and mind awake. So it even stops you falling asleep as you relax. So we'll just meditate for a few moments more and then we'll finish.
Good evening, Paul and everyone in the session. We will now formally request for the Dhamma talk from Paul. Brahma Jaloka Tipati Sahampati Kadan Jalian Iwara Ayajata Santi Dasata Paraja Kajatika Ese Tutaman Anukam Vimam Pacham.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Good evening, everybody. Tonight I've been invited by the Buddha Dhamma Foundation to give you some Dhamma teachings. You are all what we call Dhamma farers, people traveling along the path of Dhamma. Because you have faith, interest in the Buddhist teachings, and the Buddhist teachings are literally a pathway or a way that lead us from where we are now to a point where we are free from suffering, stress, happiness. When we experience happiness, the happiness of Nibbana. So we're all travelers on this Dhamma path. We're Dhamma farers. So we have that in common. I'm aware that as many people in different parts of the world are listening at the moment, but we have that one thing in common. We're going along this same path. And it's a path from a place where we still experience suffering and difficulties in our life, but we're looking for a way out, a pathway out. Even this talk came about in a way because of people's suffering. It's only in the last few years that our monastery here in East Warburton, Victoria, Australia, has had internet access. Our monastery is up in the mountains. They're called the Yarra Ranges, part of the Great Dividing Range, big chain of mountains through southeast Australia. And these mountains used to be like a barrier to mobile or internet signals. So the monastery was a dead zone, which we all, as monks, used to think was a good thing, because then we didn't get interrupted by the rest of the world through the internet or mobile phones. But then a few years ago, there was a very bad bushfire called the Black Saturday bushfire, which came through this area. It didn't affect the monastery directly, but the next town along the road was completely destroyed, and more than 50 people died in the midst of that fire. So it was a great tragedy for that town. So after that, the government and telecommunications companies started putting up more mobile towers in the mountains, and we started to get signals, mobile signals, which allowed us to join the internet and get to this point now where we can have a live stream from the monastery. And then the other cause of this live stream, you might say, is the current coronavirus pandemic, which has led to a huge upsurge in activity on the internet because so many people in so many parts of the world are stuck in lockdown in their houses or places of residence or monasteries, and relying on the internet more than ever before. And that includes us tonight. Because of the pandemic, we're all experiencing lockdown on one level or another, staying more in our homes. So that has brought us to look for the Dhamma, this pathway that we're seeking out for a way out of suffering towards happiness, and using the internet as one tool that helps us along that pathway. As we know, the internet can be a double-edged sword. It can bring us very useful information. We can use it to exchange the Dhamma, talk to each other, listen to the Dhamma, listen to chanting, read the Dhamma, and so on. And that can be a very good thing. Or it can be a source of more confusion, uncertainty, as we are exposed to all kinds of information generated from people, many people, or the majority of people who don't practice the Dhamma, have no faith in the Dhamma or knowledge of the Dhamma, or maybe putting stuff out on the internet for other reasons. We're exposed to all that, and that can be an obstacle along our path. Going from here to Nibbana, part of our practice is about clearing the obstacles, cutting away through the jungle, the thicket of views and opinions, and wrong views, false assumptions, the thicket of distractions, particularly all the sensual distractions, and particularly the internet tends to focus them right into our house, all kinds of entertainments and different sensual impingements, which in terms of our practice becomes like obstacle along the path that we have to clear away. That might mean just turning it off, limiting it. But our practice is like that. We keep having to clear away the obstacles. First of all, on the outside, so creating a good space for the practice is important. So tonight, many of you have prepared your Dhamma space at home. You've got your room that is relatively quiet, I hope. You may have a picture or a shrine, a picture of a Buddha or teacher, or a shrine that you can bow to, chant in front of, or meditate with. So our external environment is important. So that might mean at this time, meditating, listening to Dhamma, means turning off other media, computers, not the one you're using now, but if you have, say, a mobile phone, you might turn that off, turn it to silent, turn your TV off, put the dog or the cat in another room, put the kids to bed, and maybe it's not a good time to have a dinner party when you want to meditate, and so on. This is one part of the practice, developing and creating a good Dhamma space in our home, because that's one factor in our practice, is the external environment. Beyond our home, we only have very limited control, say, of society as a whole. And sometimes society as a whole is quite conducive to our practice. Say at the moment with lockdown, people are traveling less is happening, less social events, less work-related traveling. Maybe it's actually quite a conducive time for Dhamma practice, even on the level of society. But it's not always. Sometimes society and the demands of society are quite heavy, and work demands, social events, funerals and weddings and engagements are all quite distracting and take our mind away from the Dhamma. So the environment is important. It does affect us. It's one factor, both our immediate environment where we're sitting right now, but also the wider environment of society. And then there's the internal environment, which we also have to pick our way through, just like going through the jungle. You have to pick your way along the jungle path, moving things out of the way, clearing the rubbish and so on. Well, internally in our own mind, we also have to clear away this path to get towards Nibbana. And that's why regular practice, listening to Dhamma, chanting, meditating is so valuable, because it helps to set our mind straight again on the path towards Nibbana. And just hearing the Dhamma, whether it's from a talk or just chanting some of the reflections we chant regularly, can be enough to bring you back to the present moment, bring you back to reflect on some of the truths that you've heard before and remind you, or maybe you'll learn something new as well. And this path that we're practicing and moving along, it's a path of learning, self-learning. We are dependent on teachers and friends in the practice, but also we have to be dependent on our own efforts. We have to learn for ourselves how to move along the Dhamma path towards our goal, which is peace, happiness. So regular practice will help there. Regular practice of meditation will bring great merit, great good fortune to our life. I can speak from experience, having meditated for at least 40 years regularly. I can't think of anything more useful for a human being to do in their life than to learn the skill of meditation. That isn't to say that's the only part of our practice, but it's such an essential part of the Buddhist practice for training the mind and moving from a place of still being stressed and suffering in life to a place where we're more peaceful, have more understanding, more wisdom, more happiness. Meditation is one of the most vital tools for that. And yet it's something that people are often a little bit reluctant to do unless they may be in a group, and that's fair enough. I think most of us begin with meditation in a group or with a teacher. But it's something we have to be brave and take on as a practice. If you really want to progress along your path, then meditation will help, because you're developing so many useful skills and qualities in your mind when you learn meditation. They have a saying in Buddhism, they say every moment you bring up mindfulness is a moment of good fortune for you. And we all want good fortune in our life, but usually we're seeking it from external means. We want to work and be successful and earn a lot of money and praise and good reputation, or we want to win the lottery, or we go to a fortune teller and ask them when are we going to be successful, or we go to a monk and want a blessing. We all want good fortune. But with all that wanting and seeking in external places, we often overlook the fact that every moment that we develop mindfulness in our life, we're bringing up good fortune for ourselves. It's as simple as that. And we have so much time available to do this. It's surprising that human beings overlook this. You really don't need a lot of tools or special things to practice mindfulness, because it's a quality and it's a practice that you can develop any place, any time, any activity. All you need is this body and this mind that you have right here already. As we know, Luang Por Chah was once asked by somebody, and they said, I really like the idea of practicing meditation, but I don't have any time. My work schedule is so full. I'm often working until 7, 8 at night, and then I get home and I've got no time with my family duties. It's just get home, look after the kids, have my food and go to bed. No time to meditate. Luang Por Chah's answer was, Do you have time to breathe? Because your breath is there all the time. All the time that you're doing your work, traveling to work, coming home, looking after your kids or your partner or your other family duties, shopping, whatever it is you're doing, you're breathing as you do it. So a wise person might realize, there is actually an opportunity to develop mindfulness and the other qualities that we talk about in meditation all the time. Not simply when you're in a situation like this, when you're sitting on your meditation cushion in a hall or a center or at home with a live stream cast like this. Those are good times, and there probably are the best times to meditate. But you can also meditate at other times, because all you need to do is bring attention to the present moment and focus your mind on what you're doing in the present moment. There's a monk I knew who, when he was new to the monkhood, he was struggling with meditation. He said, I came into the monastery to meditate, but my mind is all over the place, scattered, thinking so much, full of doubts, worries. I really have faith in the Buddha, but I don't know how to do this meditation thing. And he asked Lumpur Cha how to practice mindfulness and clear comprehension in daily life when you have so many different things to do, because even monks have different duties and activities. And Ajahn Chah answered and said, just get in the habit of pausing and asking yourself, what am I doing now? And then answer yourself at the same time, what am I doing now? I am sitting here listening to a talk, or I am washing the dishes, or I'm walking from one room to another, or whatever it is you're doing. You simply answer yourself and you become mindful. What am I doing now? I've always found this a very simple solution to the question is how to be more mindful. If mindfulness, the practice of mindfulness and the quality of mindfulness is going to bring us all this good fortune that we want, then how do you get it? It's something you would want, isn't it? It's called our inner wealth. We all want to be wealthy, and we tend to focus more on material wealth, don't we? Earn more money, buy more property, get more things. But really our true wealth is our inner wealth, the qualities that stay with us for life and maybe even into our next life as well. That would be our true wealth, something that even death can't take away from us. And what is one of the most vital qualities that form the basis for this kind of inner wealth or spiritual wealth? It's mindfulness. So it should be something we're really interested in having and attaining and getting. And yet we overlook it all the time. So learning to just pay attention to whatever you're doing. Ajahn Chah used to say, when you practice mindfulness, when do you start? Well, it's not when you get to the meditation cushion, it's before you get to the meditation cushion. It's as you walk in the door of the room where your meditation cushion is, for example. Or it's when you wake up. What is the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? You try to establish mindfulness. If you're in Asia at the moment, you probably have nice warm days, so you don't have this problem. But here in the mountains of southern Australia, it's very cold in the morning. Sometimes it's down to 1 or 2 degrees, and nobody likes that. So you wake up, it's cold. But what do? Your aim is, first thing is just to establish mindfulness when you wake up. That might mean, monks in the monastery, we have different ways of doing this. One is you just throw off your bedclothes. So you have to be mindful and wake up. You may have an alarm clock. But what are you actually doing with your mind? First thing in the morning is you're trying to establish mindfulness. Establish clarity, clear comprehension. It's morning. Occasionally, if you're really tired, you'll notice sometimes you wake up in the morning and you don't even know where you are, if you've had that time experience. And I don't mean somebody who's got drunk the night before and they wake up, where am I? I mean just somebody who's gone to bed the night before, maybe quite tired, had a deep sleep, and then come out of that. And their first moments of establishing mindfulness and clarity in the morning is literally, where am I? What day is it? But as soon as you establish that, then you have then maybe another moment of mindfulness. It's Sunday. I don't have to go to work, maybe. So you might feel good. Or maybe it's Monday. Oh, I do have to get up to work. What time is it? I've got to get ready. So mindfulness established leads on to other courses of action in that situation. It's so ordinary we overlook it. And through our day, it's the same. We're constantly having opportunities to re-establish mindfulness and bring up this very skillful, wholesome quality that the Buddha said is so useful to human beings, that they say is always a cause for good fortune to arise. We have the opportunity to develop mindfulness at any moment, and yet we forget, we overlook. So this is what we're developing, the heart of it. Of course, there's many more qualities and things we're doing in our Buddhist practice, but this, you might say, is the heart of it. Mindfulness leads to the deathless. Nibbana is the deathless. Leads to the end of suffering. The more mindfulness we have, the better it is for us. It's as simple as that. You can never have too much mindfulness. You can always have more. And the opportunity to develop mindfulness is right there. I also, like when I was a young monk, I also had that kind of question, how much mindfulness do you need to become a sotapanna or to gain jhana? All those kind of questions we like to have. So one time I was with Ajahn Buddhadasa, colleague, friend of Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Buddhadasa said, you only need enough mindfulness to tie your shoelace properly. And we all had a laugh about that, because I was with a group of monks and Luang Por Buddhadasa, and nobody had shoes with shoelaces on. But we knew what he meant. You just need that enough mindfulness to pay attention to what you're doing in the present moment, whether it's tying your shoelace, or in the case of a monk, putting your sandal on, or if it's the winter like this, putting your sock on, or whatever else it may be. You only need that much mindfulness to be present in the moment and pay attention to what you're doing. But the idea is to keep a continuity of mindfulness, and that's the hard part. And we can all have enough mindfulness to tie our shoelace, to be more aware of our hands, our body, how we feel, what we're thinking at any moment in our day, in our life. But to keep it going is quite a challenge. And that's why sessions like this, listening to the Dhamma, meditating together, and to keep coming back to that regularly is going to help you so much, because we need to practice it. And the formal meditation sessions do help with that, because you come together and you put all your effort into it, maybe for a period of time, whatever time you've got, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Some formal meditation is where you do your intense practice. Or if you've got time off, maybe you do your retreat, your 7-day retreat, 10-day retreat, where you really get into it. These are all good. And they boost our practice, because we practice more intensely, put more effort into bringing up mindfulness. But then it doesn't mean to say we can neglect it during our daily life, when we're working, doing our family business, seeking entertainment, whatever. Mindfulness is always there to be developed. It's as if it's just existing there, but we are far from it, and we have to bring our mind to it. Of course, mindfulness is just a term we use for this quality of mind, paying attention to the present moment. So you use techniques to bring out mindfulness. So it could be the breath, learning to pay more attention to the breath through your day. It could be asking these questions: what am I doing right now? And then explaining to yourself what you're doing. Monks, teaching monks quite often do this to their students. They'll ask them, what are you doing? out of the blue, they'll just say that, and you're sort of, huh, what? If you're not very mindful, you're lost in a train of thought, a daydream, and they perhaps have noticed that. Then they'll, what are you doing right now? They'll do that, literally just to bring your mind back to the present moment, to wake you up. But really what they're doing is setting you an example, and then you have to take that and start learning for yourself. Because what is the biggest obstacle along our path and the biggest obstacle to mindfulness? Well, it's lack of mindfulness. And what stimulates lack of mindfulness? Well, for following unawareness, craving, clinging, attachment, the causes of suffering that the Buddha drew our attention to. These are what take our mindfulness away. How does unawareness, craving, attachment arise? Well, the Buddha said it always arises from sense contact. You see something, and if it's nice, attractive, beautiful, well, you start to get fascinated, drawn into what you see, and you lose your mindfulness. You maybe become caught into a pleasant mood, and a series of thoughts and feelings or emotions come up based on that. Or you see something unpleasant. Maybe you see somebody you don't like, and some negativity arises, and that stimulates your mind, a train of thought. So this is what we call craving arising, based on some sense contact and then some feeling, pleasure or pain. See somebody you like, we're excited, we find it puts us in a good mood. We see somebody we don't like, puts us in a bad mood. Our mindfulness is gone. This is just for example. But Ajahn Chah used to say, if you're still following your moods in your daily life, in your life, you haven't begun to practice yet. Because to practice mindfulness means you actually have to go against that habit. You have to interrupt that habit. So that's why when we were meditating just now, I was giving you instruction to put attention on the in and out breath, which is fairly easy instruction, just like tying your shoelace, nothing too difficult. We would say not rocket science, although it sometimes can seem like it. So the instruction is easy, but then you can only do it for a moment, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. If things are going well, 10 seconds. And then it's gone, isn't it? It's gone to the next mental impression. So you hear a sound, what was that? And you get caught up in the sound, whether it's pleasant or not, you're just distracted by it. Or you have an internal sense stimulation, because that is one of the sense doorways of your own mind. And as you're meditating, that's often the most stimulating thing, is your own mind throwing up memories. You remember something pleasant and it's enjoyable, so off you go thinking about that. You remember something unpleasant, and maybe it upsets you or puts you in a bad mood, and so you're thinking that for a while. We've all had this experience, and basically what's happened is you've lost your mindfulness and clear comprehension, you've forgotten the breath or whatever meditation object you're using, and off your mind goes for a little journey. But this isn't the journey to Nibbana, this is the journey to suffering. So this is establishing some wisdom here helps. If you have that wisdom, when I follow a train of thought, it's not leading to clarity, understanding, insight, peace. It's leading on to more confusion, more distraction, more attachment, and ultimately more suffering. Even though we don't immediately see the suffering, maybe, especially with pleasant thoughts and pleasant moods that we get into, well, they're quite nice, so we tend to indulge in them. But what happens is you get undermined, your mindfulness is lost by that pleasant mood, stimulated by something or other, a memory or a pleasant sight, a sound, taste, smell, touch, whatever. You're undermining your mindfulness, off you go on that little journey with that pleasant mood, and then you're gone, you're lost. So Ajahn Chah used to say, it's actually like a moment of death. Even though it's pleasant, but you've died from the present moment and you're gone. You're no longer fully in control because your mindfulness is gone. So you're just enjoying the pleasure of that. It could be a a fantasy. When coronavirus is finished, where will I go holiday first? Somebody who's done a lot of holidaying and traveling in their past will be having a lot of this, planning their next trip, saving my money now. I'm not going on in trips now. So next year when it's all over, I'm off to wherever it is you want to go, do this, do that. And that fantasy could fill your mind easily for 5 minutes. But you're dead, meaning dead to your mindfulness, dead to the Dhamma. It's the opposite of the deathless. It's the opposite of Nibbana. That's the short-term disadvantage of being unmindful, is you die from the present moment and off you go into this state of distraction. The more long-term disadvantage is you're establishing a pattern, a pathway. You could talk about neuroscience. It could be a neural pathway. You could talk about mental habits, psychology, but it's a habit that's getting reinforced, a habit of losing mindfulness and indulging in pleasant thoughts, pleasant feelings, nice fantasies and imagination, or unpleasant ones. And those are the ones we tend to notice and want to get rid of first because they're unpleasant. So bad memories, negativity, anger. But the pleasant ones are just as damaging in the long run because they're setting the same characteristic and habit of losing mindfulness and indulging in some mood or other. We indulge in our moods, we've lost the Dhamma, we've lost awareness, we're moving away from the deathless, away from Nibbana, and more to states of confusion, greed, anger, delusion. So in a nutshell, you might say, this is the heart of our practice every day, is how well we can bring mindfulness up, maintain it, bring the mind back, and develop some continuity. And it's a challenge, and it's very frustrating because we are so used to not being mindful, only semi-mindful. And it's not that we're completely unmindful, and often we trick ourselves. We say, I know what I'm doing. I'm walking from here to there. I'm in front of my computer, tapping away, typing. I'm driving my car. But the mind is only half there. And if we're honest, and particularly if you do start to practice meditation, you'll notice it's only half there. And it's quite possible to do two things at once. Literally, your mind is moving between two objects. It's not that you have two things happening at exactly the same time in your mind, but your mind is flipping very quickly. So you can be driving your car and planning your next foreign trip to see your friend or go traveling or go on a retreat or something as you're driving. And most of the time, there may be no real danger there. But accidents do happen, obstacles arise. Why is that? Well, partly it's because we lose concentration and we lose our mindfulness. And so it can be dangerous if you're driving a car. Maybe someone runs out in front of you, or a car turns in front of you, or something unexpected happens. A lot of accidents come from a lack of mindfulness. I talked to a policeman here in Australia once. He said most accidents, the most common time for car accidents is afternoons, 4 or 5 p.m. People are coming home from work tired, they're rushing, they got other things on their mind, so they miss something and they crash or have an accident. Or mum's going to pick up their kids from school, they're tired, again, they lose their mindfulness, have an accident. So that's a good example of what happens when we think we're mindful, we know what we're doing, we're driving a car, we've done it hundreds of times before, but we're not actually fully mindful, fully conscious of what we're doing. Most of the time we get away with it, but occasionally we don't. It's the same in every other situation, even meditating. Many times I've been scolded when I was a young monk by teachers. You're meditating, you think you're mindful sitting there, but you're letting your mind wander and drift. And they can tell, maybe through their very skillful meditation, they can tell your mind is not in the present moment with the breath, or maybe your posture gives it away. You start to change your posture, fall asleep. And so you might get a scolding, oh, you're not awake, wake up, or bring your mind back to the breath. So even meditation, we do it. Chanting is the same. Many people can be chanting a Buddhist chant. The words are coming out of the mouth, but the mind is also planning something. It could be something quite unwholesome, what you're going to do after the chanting, or you want to get back at this guy that you don't like, and you're planning how you're going to get back at them as you're chanting things that are, in praise of the Buddha, the Dhamma, the Sangha. It's possible because mindfulness is not yet complete. It's not yet full. And you'll find this happens all the time in your day. There are times when you think you're doing something and then the mind is drifting back in and out of full mindfulness and half mindfulness and occasionally no mindfulness, and we become sleepy or completely unconscious. But mindfulness is something like that. It's something we have to keep re-establishing effort. And much of our effort in Buddhist practice is actually directed towards bringing up mindfulness. If you're ever wondering in your day, what can I do now that will further me along the Buddhist path to Nibbana? Mindfulness. What do I need to do to bring up mindfulness? Pay attention to the breath. Or if you're doing some job, well, you can use that as a basis for mindfulness. So if you are driving a car, make that the basis for your mindfulness practice at that moment. If you're typing at your computer, that becomes the object of your mindfulness. If you're talking to your friend or work colleague, at that moment, you can be mindful of your speech or whatever the activity is that you're involved with them, and so on. We can, of course, change activities through our day, and we need to, but we can take the quality of mindfulness with us as we're doing each new activity, each new posture, and so on. So this quality of mindfulness I've been talking about tonight, the Buddha said it's one of the most useful qualities we can develop. It's an inner spiritual wealth that will stay with you. The more you practice it, the more you develop it, the more it will be there, the easier it will come up through your whole life and even into your next life. And it's a quality that helps to guard over the mind. The Buddha compared it to like the gatekeeper. Maybe nowadays you might call it the bouncer. Maybe you've got a club or a hotel that has a bouncer or a doorman or somebody on the door, just checking who's coming in, who they are, their particulars, their name and address, whether looking to see whether they're mean well or maybe they're up to no good. In the time of the Buddha, it would be the gatekeeper on the city. They had walled cities and they had to be careful about bandits and people up to no good. So they had a gatekeeper who would decide before the gates were shut at night who could come in, who couldn't come in. Mindfulness is like that. It's this quality that helps to protect your mind, keep you in the present moment, and start to sort out some of your mental activity, the thoughts, the memories, those thoughts, whether they're wholesome, whether they're unwholesome, skillful or unskillful, helpful or problematic. The more mindfulness you have, the more you can guard over your mind, the more you can choose how to use your mind. And it's not that you can't think when you're practicing mindfulness, but you can choose your thoughts better. You can decide to be mindful of an object, of a topic. So you can be mindful and review or think through some bit of work. It could be related to your work, or it could be something to do with the Dhamma. When you're mindful, you start to be able to do that very well. When you're not mindful, you're a prey to your moods again. Something interests you, excites you, your mind follows that. Something distracts you, you follow that. Something brings up aversion, but you follow the train of aversion. You're no longer in control. You're dead, mentally dead, as they say. But when you practice mindfulness, your mind is in its best position to choose what to think, what to focus on. It's on its guard, so it's prepared for whatever life throws at you. It's in the best possible position to make wise choices, get work done, get things done. It's such a useful quality. The Buddha said, you can't have too much of it. And most important of all, it's there to help us weed out greed, anger, and delusion from our mind, which is this practice of clearing the path, clearing the obstacles of the path towards Nibbana, purifying the mind, improving it, developing it, finding more peace, more happiness by removing what stops us from being peaceful. The greed, the anger, the delusion, the attachment. Mindfulness is what helps you to do that. So tonight I've been giving you a bit of encouragement in your practice of mindfulness, because it's something we all need to develop more of, and it is that pathway to the deathless. Mindfulness will take you along that path. It will take you towards more peace, more happiness. So maybe I'll end the talk here and just encourage you all to practice mindfulness as best you can, as much as you can, and we can talk again next time.
So with that, we'll close the session by saying sadhu. Han Dhammayang Ovadakaya Sadhu Karang Dadamase Sadhu 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 Anumodami.
So I wish you all well. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami.